Neuroscientists at the University of Cape Coast are calling on women to stop pressing the heads of newborn babies in order to change the shape of the heads of such babies. According to the scientists, such practices affect the functioning of the brains of the children and might affect their thinking capabilities when they grow up. The neuroscientists were speaking at the Brain Awareness Week at the University of Cape Coast, from where Richard Kwejonyako reports.
The human skull is the bony structure that forms the head in the human skeleton. It supports the structures of the face and forms a cavity for the brain. The brain is contained in and protected by the skull bones of the head. Many societal practices in Ghana and elsewhere believe that the shape of one's head could be altered to suit the parents and society by nursing mothers or women who nurse the babies. According to the neuroscientists at the University of Cape Coast, the continuous pressing of the fragile heads of newborn babies to change the shape of their heads has grave consequences for the brains of the children. Speaking at the Brain Awareness Week in Cape Coast, Dr. Francis Jangma, with the School of Physiology, called for an end to such practices. He says the practice places limitations on the brain.
When children are born, their skull is very soft. A child's bone is so soft. In fact, if you press hard on it, you will see a depression on the skull. So the old ladies who are made to bath the children, they should not press on the head. They should just leave the head alone. If you press on the head, you are going to press directly on the brain and damage brain cells, and that child will grow up having neurologic problems. So we want them to understand, if the head is not round, it doesn't matter. They should leave the head as it is. It doesn't matter what shape. Because if they force and they push and push, they want to make it round, they are damaging the brain. As I said, it's like fufu. If you put it in a shape, it takes that shape. And then you damage the skull and you damage the brain. So this child will suffer throughout their life. If you look at the Western world, in fact, in the Western world, if you give birth to a child, all they tell you is, there's a nurse that comes to bath the child. They don't allow you to bath the child, especially if it's your first birth. A nurse comes to bath the child and clean the child. Educate them, because if you don't educate people, this is what they've been doing. They will tell you, they did it on me, they did it on you, they did it on him. That's what they will tell you. They feel because they've done it for long it's right, but it's not right. Let's educate them.
Also called for a rigid enforcement of the domestic violence laws that abhor husbands and men beating their pregnant wives and partners. Professor Francis Ofe, another neuroscientist, called for an end to the hitting of the heads of children with implements and other objects. He says the practice, coupled with the failure of many to treat certain diseases, has the propensity to damage the brain.
Today we've been speaking about beating of children, corporal punishment, especially that involves giving them knocks or hitting their heads with heavy objects. These are some cultural practices and societal practices that we must speak about and try and stop in our society. Hypertension, diabetes, and some common conditions which are poorly managed in this country. All these lead to strokes, and strokes can lead to brain damage.
The Brain Awareness Week is a global campaign that promotes public interest in how to protect the brains of individuals. Richard Kwejonyako, JoyNews, Cape Coast.
Simply leave the head of your newborns. Great advice there.